Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB network. We are Los Angeles Sports, and thank you as always for making us a part of your day. I'm Ryan Dyer, joined as always by the great Skinny T, and today we're talking. It's probably way too early, but we're talking Rams training camp battles as we head into the second half of May. So still a ways to go. We got mini camp, we got OTAs. So maybe this can be even as inferred as OTA battles or just off-season battles. But just some food for thought as we get into the doldrums of the off season. But first and foremost, Mr. Skinny T, what's going on, man? How you doing today?
You know what's not in the doldrums? Giannis to the Lakers trade talk. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Would that
Giannis
be
to every
insane?
team out there, trade talk.
Yeah. It seems like there's top five, and then there's always the Lakers because you can't count them out from anything. So
I mean, that would be fun if somehow, some way, if LeBron does come back, or doesn't opt out, I should say, and you have LeBron, Luka, and Giannis, I mean, that's pretty wild.
yeah, it'd be really wild.
It's one of
But
those. It's one of those like it'd be so good, but at the same time, like, would they even have 12 players on the roster? Would it be literally like a 5-man team?
and those all the three of those guys seem so different as well. It's like a weird mix.
Yeah.
Like when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, it was like he was joining a team that was already put together.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as weird. And then there was like the big three in Miami back in the early 2000s. And it was like, well, that's already the Miami team.
Yeah.
So
Or
I
that.
don't, it's
Yeah,
just
I don't know.
bizarre.
It would be interesting. So, I mean, if you're Milwaukee, it's like the Lakers just don't have the assets that would make it worth it, I don't think. But like you said, you can never count them out. Like, it's kind of like when the Patriots had their dynasty run. It's like somehow teams would always like just give them what they wanted. It's like, why are you making this team better? I don't understand it. Like, why are you doing things to help this already dynasty? And not that the Lakers have been a dynasty of recent memory, but there's those teams that somehow just get kind of what they want, and it just doesn't make sense. You would think the league would be like, or the other owners would be like, let's do everything to not help this team, and yet somehow, some way, those teams kind of get it.
Well, and I've been covering the NFL for a good amount of time. I have a pretty decent handle on how the salary cap works, like what's real money, what's fake money. And now that I'm covering the NBA a bit, like I'm starting over at square one, being like, this makes an ape. We've got aprons. What's an apron? I'm so confused.
Yeah, wait, there's chefs and kitchens and what I hate it. It makes the aprons, and then all the pick swaps when you do trades, and so the list of like, oh, this trade, and it lists like 8 teams that pick has all been to, and which obviously happens in other leagues too, but it just the way the verbiage is used, I think, is so confusing. And protected picks.
Well,
Yeah,
here's another example of the supremacy of the NFL. The NBA draft lottery is tonight.
Oh, is it?
Who
You're
knew?
right.
On Monday night, and nobody knows. It's competing with its own product of the NBA playoffs. Why would you do that?
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
silly. That's a good point. Yeah, I do remember seeing something that was coming up, but yeah, that is silly. The only reason I know is because Schefter tweeted out that like the Utah Jazz have never like moved up in the lottery in like since 1982 or some random, like the most random Schefter tweet ever today, but it had to do with the draft lottery. Last thing I was going to say, the best league to cover salary contracts is the NHL, because the NHL is literally just like cut and dry. It's like if someone signs a 4-year, $20 million deal, their salary is $5 million per year, and that's what goes against the cap. There's no like moving it around. It's just like, all right, here's $5 million a year. That's what goes against the cap, and that's it.
so
Great.
Canadian,
Right? It's yeah, just simplify it. It's great. Every time I look, I'm expecting, like when I'm looking at Kings and other teams, I'm like, oh, what can they do with the cap? And I'm expecting all these crazy like numbers, and I'm like, oh, they need to clear $4 million. That's what they need to do. Like, either release someone or you can't do it. Anyway, so training camp, we are still roughly 2 months away. Mid to end of July is when training camp kicks off. We've got some teams are in rookie minicamp right now. Chargers, did the Rams start? I don't think they started rookie minicamp yet, did they?
I don't believe so, but they are going to Maui for some of their training camp.
Yeah. Aaron
I think
Donald's joining them.
what's that?
Isn't
Oh,
Aaron Yeah, Aaron Donald's gonna like hang out down there, right?
well, I don't know if he's actually. Why not go to Maui for sure?
Yeah.
I think LAFB is sending me to Maui, right?
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
But that was a part of a hilarious video of him trying on a Puka Nakua costume. So I think he's going as Puka Nakua for Halloween.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, and Puka Nakua just announced also that he's pregnant. So hats off or kudos or congrats to Puka
Yeah.
Nakua announcing on Mother's Day that he's going to be a father.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah,
He
exciting. So welcome.
didn't have to wait till he retired to get that checked off the
Yeah.
bucket list.
Yeah, did not have to wait till he was 30, I guess. But anyway, so all these mini camps and stuff are starting to kick off. End of May, June is when you have these before the true just absolute dead period before training camp. But with nothing else really going on, we wanted to take a break from like draft analysis and free agency talk, and let's just talk the current team as it's constructed and talk some camp battles. And in this camp, however you want to define it, this could be mini camp, this could be OTAs, just off-season battles, I guess, heading into the year. So which group, Skinny, do you want to highlight first? And this doesn't necessarily have to even be starter. This can be kind of for that backup role or whatever. But which group you want to highlight first?
Well, we were talking before coming into this, and we knew this going into the draft, where it was like it seems like there's the starters for most positions are pretty much locked in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there's a whole bunch of new talent on here. I think let's start on probably the hottest contested one right now, which is I think it might be the most wide open is linebacker, middle linebacker. And what makes it the most interesting is this might determine who's wearing the green dot. It could be Cam Curl. I might put my money on him. Might be Quentin Lake, depending on how their roles shake out. But looking at the linebackers on the roster right now, there's a chance that Troy Reeder, who is the most experienced linebacker, will be the full-time green dot. The green dot has to be on the field 100% of the snaps. This is the guy that has a communication device in his helmet. That's why he has to be out there the whole time. So, he's the one with the most experience. He's never had this responsibility before, but I mean, given the experience or the lack of experience across the rest of the way, does that automatically put him in the driver's seat for a starting role on this defense?
I mean, it definitely puts him in the driver's seat, as much as that probably pains fans to hear. But I mean, you nailed it. He's got the most experience. He's been with the team a long time, even after leaving for a year and coming back. His DC, Chris Shula, was his position coach back in the Super Bowl years or Super Bowl year and others, as he was, Chris Shula was the linebacker coach. So there's a lot of familiarity there. I don't think that'd be good for the defense if he ends up winning that role, that starting role, and is the green dot. I think Troy Reeder can do some good things. I don't want to just turn into this hating of Troy Reeder, but if he's expected to be on the field 100% of the time as the green dot wearer is, I don't think that behooves well for the LA Rams defense. But, and I'm not saying you're saying it should be, but to your point, Skinny, like, when you look at the linebacker room and the fact that it's, Omar Speights, who I think, has a high ceiling. We saw some good things last year, but was a UDFA for a reason. There's some limitations there, some athletic limitations. But he could certainly be in that running. And then after that, it's pretty much newcomers. When you look at Nate Landman, who I think, aside from no one knowing who that was when he signed, it was actually a pretty good signing. Like, the dude had some good production in Atlanta and obviously played for Coach Raheem Morris, and who spoke highly on him. And so I think that was a good signing. And then you look at the draft of Chris Paul Jr., who I think is a very underrated, great draft pick in the later rounds out of Ole Miss, but a late round draft pick, rookie. Like, you don't want your rookie to be the green dot wearer. That's a lot of responsibility. Not saying it's never happened. Off the top of my head, though, I can't think of it happening often. I don't know if you can think of a rookie that was the green dot. I'm not even just saying for the Rams. I'm just saying in general for the NFL. I don't think that's a very common thing. Usually you want a veteran guy that's basically quarterbacking your defense. So that's asking a lot for a late round rookie or a newcomer or a UDFA that still ended up starting but played limited snaps until later in the year. So yeah, I think Troy Reader is kind of the front runner right now, which is a little scary.
Yeah. Omar Spates got a lot of experience last season. He was in there for Troy Reader when Troy Reader went down with the injury.
Yep.
But again, that's they're saying that we're gonna. They were forced to start Omar Spates, and he surprised and lived up to expectations. And the development is not linear, so it's not like in Madden where you just pick up a couple of points on your agility score every year or however that works. So I'm if we're talking camp battles, I'm going to pencil Troy Reader in as that starter, as that guy that's going to play the most snaps. So I think the real battle is going to be between Spates and Landman, and Chris Paul is a 5th round pick.
Yeah.
And he's splitting time with the Suns or whatever he's on. No, that's not true. That's a different Chris Paul. But I think they'll probably use those two guys in a rotation. Probably, Landman's a little bit lengthier, a little bit more sideline to sideline rather than kind of the gap filler that Omar Spates is. So that's actually a pretty complimentary two guys there, and then if Chris Paul can force his way in there, or that UDFA Sean Dolak can, I think they're going to be special teamers for sure. But maybe we'll be surprised by some young upstarts in this position as well.
Yeah. If I'm being honest, I know this wasn't necessarily the question, but the more we talk about it, we'll have a whole offseason to see kind of how this unfolds. But for my money right now, I would bet that kind of what you alluded to in the beginning, that one of the safeties actually gets the green dot, and these linebackers are truly used in a rotation. Just because, again, like I don't feel good about Troy Reader being on the field 100%. I think he can have a good role. Like there's times he can shoot the gap good. He's good on twists and stunts. I wouldn't call him a coverage linebacker by any means, but I mean, he can do some good things. He's a lunch pail kind of work guy that we like. But the way that room is constructed right now, I would prefer it, and I'm not the coach on the team, but I think until Landman and either Spates or Paul Jr. kind of sees that starting role 100% of the time, I'm giving that green dot to someone like a Cam Curl, or we'll see what Cam's Kitchen's role is going into this year if he's the true 100% starter on safety. And again, for those that don't know, I think I'm not saying tons of fans are very intelligent. So, but if there's anyone that doesn't know, like the green dot, as Ryan alluded to, is, one in the back of the helmet, but it signifies that you're kind of the play caller. You have the radio in your helmet. And so you are on the field 100% of the time. Like if you leave the field, there's no way to communicate the play into the defense outside of substituting someone in with the play running into the huddle. And so that's why it's typically not a defensive lineman, because they're on heavy rotations. It's typically not a cornerback outside of I think Jalen Ramsey wore it for a little bit actually. But most cornerbacks, when you're in nickel or dime or different sub packages, there's a rotation there. So that's why when you have a one linebacker that's your 100%, or you have a safety that's always in, those are the two most common positions to get it. So right now, I'm just saying I think Cam Curl should be that guy for now. We'll see what it looks like, come training camp. But I'm too I'd be too nervous with Troy Reader being your 100% linebacker going into the season with Super Bowl aspirations.
Well, I think this is a good transition to start talking about a bit about the secondary, and kind of, there's not really many, I wouldn't call them battles necessarily, but there's going to be some interesting decisions to be made, particularly at nickel corner, which Quentin Lake played a bit last year.
Yep.
Probably, and I was just trying to look up to see if Kobe Durant, because I think he's better as an outside kind of guy rather than in the slot. So I was just trying to take a look at what his alignments was, and he played a bit of slot, 137 snaps, so not a ton. the game that he played the most was Seattle, earning a 30% or a 30 coverage grade from PFF, which is not
great.
good, not good at all. So,
Not great.
So I'm curious, and I think Darian Kendrick's gonna be coming back from an injury. He missed the entire season with an ACL, I believe, so he'll be coming back with that. And I'm just kind of curious, who's going to end up in that kind of role. Quentin Lake filled that position. Darius Williams and Akilla Witherspoon are pretty much just outside corners. So,
Yep.
We've talked about Josh Wallace and Charles Woods. Charles Woods got a good amount of playing time. So, and then you got Emmanuel Forbes kind of hanging out there too. And what's his role going to be, and can he work himself into? He was brought in late last year after the Washington released him. He was a first rounder.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't play much at all last year, but interesting guy to keep your eye on, I think.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the pedigree, being 16th overall or something, he was taken by Washington that year. Wow. So talent is there. It's been the body size and, I'm sure other stuff that I didn't follow back when he was at Washington, but I mean, maybe the most interesting camp battle, Skinny, is Emmanuel Forbes versus Tutu Atwell. I mean, you're talking about body for body, blow for blow being like the wind. I mean, we'll see who comes out on top with that battle.
Well, I mentioned it last episode, I think, but we have Puna Ford and then the young man, the UDFA. They're both over 300 pounds, under 6 feet tall. That'll be a fun one to watch too.
Yeah, 100%. With Ford and Lampkin, I think you're talking about Willie Lampkin.
Yeah, Willie Lampkin. Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm really curious to see what Forbes and do you have it in front of you? I'm going to be honest. I haven't looked. Does he play more in the slot when he did play?
I will look that up right now. I don't know. Emmanuel Forbes. I would imagine he was outside. 6'1", 180 pounds.
Yeah. If I can spell here correctly. Jeez. Well, you'll probably get faster than me, but yeah, I'm curious because if we're talking just that nickel or slot.
23, just 17 snaps in the slot. So used primarily as outside. Played one in the slot for all of last year. So
okay. So we're looking at Josh Wallace, Charles Wood, Quentin Lake is kind of your most likely. I know they use Jalen McCullough too sometimes in different packages where they have 3 safety sets and whatnot. And obviously Quentin Lake was a former safety, so when you have that athleticism, it allows you to kind of move all over in that. So that'll be an interesting one. Offensively, I think this is where we have the actual most battles, if you will. Defensively, when you're looking at like backup defensive linemen and whatnot, and kind of we alluded to like a little bit of a battle there at the nickel / slot corner. But I think offensively, there's a lot of wide openness outside of pretty much quarterback and maybe right and left tackle and the guard positions. So let's start with wide receiver 3 and Tutu Atwell. Coming fresh off a 1-year, $10 million extension. The money says he should be wide receiver 3. The confidence and production says, A, why did he get that salary, which we've talked about? B, prove it. We'll see. So I think that leaves that wide open. And when you look at, Jordan Whittington, him coming on, when you look at the addition of Britton Covey, who I think is more of a special teamer, but obviously there, when you look at the drafting of Kanata Mumfield late in the 7th round, Xavier Smith coming back, what's kind of your take? I mean, obviously the UDFAs, but what's your take on this wide receiver 3? Is it kind of some of those, or is it more of Tutu Atwell versus Jordan Whittington, and that's kind of the battle?
I think Jordan Whittington has the most ability to kind of move into that true third role. Sean McVay talks over and over and over again about Tutu Atwell. And he said, probably a dozen times over the last 4 years that he needs to get him involved more. He likes what he can do. But I wonder, I think we talked to pretty good length about, is it Sean McVay or is it Matthew Stafford?
Mhm.
And regardless, I think I'm looking at this camp battle as a lot like 2023, where eventually Demarcus Robinson just moved into that third position, even though Tutu Atwell was the starter for the year and starter for about half of the year before Demarcus just kind of took over and made a big difference. And you look at what Demarcus did last season, and his role last season is kind of this, third down guy, down the field guy. He just did it really well, and I think Jordan Whittington can be that guy. Kanata Mumfield has a long way to go to prove that he can, operate within the offense. Super late round pick. I mean, if they can find a 7th rounder like they found Puka Nacua in the 5th round and Cooper Kupp in the 3rd round, you just got to put the crown on these guys for finding wide receivers wherever they want to pull them from.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how I'm seeing it, thinking it's going to play out. If I had to make a prediction, this one's really going to play out in camp, and wide receivers at camp it's really easy to fall in love and go, oh wow, this is how they're going to use that guy. Perfect example is 2022 when they brought in our guy Allen Robinson and looked great in camp. Oh my gosh, just in the back of the end zone, catching those fades from Stafford. It looked beautiful. We all thought that's what was going to happen, and it just never manifested itself.
Yeah.
So maybe a little 2022, 2023 with Tutu Atwell, in my opinion. Because I mean, is he going to change his stripes? Is he going to change that much? Is he going to become something different than he has been? I find it hard to believe.
Well, I think that's what I'll talk on is kind of that last point. Like wide receiver 3 in this offense will kind of be whatever, and this sounds like a dumb thing to say, but it'll be what McVay and Stafford make it to be. Like, I don't think it's going to be someone just like seizing it. It would, like most roles, like, all right, who's going to seize this opportunity? We have a little battle. Because if you run, and they run a bunch of other stuff now, it's not as 11 personnel heavy as it was in the early McVay era, but still a lot of 11 personnel, obviously. And when you look at what Tutu Atwell brings in his skill set, like, to me, he doesn't still, which is why the contract extension doesn't make a ton of sense to me, doesn't like fit the build of being the wide receiver 3 in 11 personnel. Like, you kind of want 3 receivers that can do different route trees and whatnot. Now, when you have another personnel packaging or grouping where you have 4 receivers, then it makes sense having Tutu in, because, he can stretch the field and he brings that dynamism ability and that speed that is why he was, drafted and whatnot. But in purely just 11 personnel, like, it makes sense having Puka, Devontae Adams, and Jordan Whittington out there, who's a little bigger body, can stretch the field when needed, and making a guest appearance there. But I lost my train of thought.
Well, it's an interesting point because I've speculated, and I think other people have as well, about 12 personnel being used more so that's two tight ends and 1 running back, and 2 wide receivers, right? So if they're moving towards more 12, the wide receiver 3 means a lot less in this offense, which I think we'll talk a little bit about tight ends, but Tyler Higbee, Terrence Ferguson, Colby Parkinson, Davis Allen, all on the roster. And, all on pretty significant contracts as well. I mean, Terrence is on a rookie deal, but, it's a 2nd round rookie deal. So a little bit more money there. So that 3rd spot could just mean a lot less and mean something a lot different than it has in the past.
Yeah. I think that's a great point to add that. So I think Whittington showed enough last year that he could certainly be more involved, and he seemed to be trusted early on. And he was trusted more than Tutu. Tutu was healthy during that time. And like Whittington kind of came onto the scene as like, oh, here's another 6th round gem that the Rams found. So I think it'll be a battle, but to me, he'll kind of take that just because I think he does a little bit more of what McVay and Stafford want to do on the offense, which is, again, kind of funny considering what McVay says publicly about Tutu, but then just doesn't do what he wants him to do, I guess. I don't know.
I want to know. Like, I just want to be on the fly on the wall in those conversations. And I was thinking about it. I was thinking about Tutu earlier today, as I often do for some reason. One of my first camps, one of my first Rams camps, it was his rookie season, and just like watching him line up in the wrong spot a couple of times. Like, obviously he's come a long way. I don't want to indict the guy, as being a bust.
Yeah.
But we've seen other guys get cut for. Van Jefferson had a rough year when he got cut or traded.
Yeah.
Ben Skoranek, ousted pretty early. In that 2022 season, he was doing all sorts of stuff, all the dirty work for this team, and couldn't find himself a long-term contract. And yet this guy that he's just fast. He plays bigger than he is.
Yeah.
Maybe he's playing like a 5'10", 5'11" guy, but
it's like that when you get that gift. Like you get that whatever it is, Christmas or birthday gift, and you're cleaning out a few years later, like your closet, and you've never used it, but you just can't get rid of it because of like the nostalgia of what it could be. Whatever that, like, I'm gonna use this one day. I can't get rid of it. Like, or even to make it even simplifier, like a shirt, right? You get like a shirt from someone, and you never wear the shirt, but every time you're doing spring cleaning to clean your closet out, you're like, I'm going to wear this shirt eventually. I can't get rid of it. Like, that's Tutu Atwell. Like, Sean McVay's is like, we're going to use him eventually. Like, his speed is undeniable. Like, I know I can stretch the field with him. We can hit these deep bombs. So, like, yes, we want to get involved, but then you just never do. And it continues to sit in the back of the closet collecting dust. And one day it'll just be a relic that time never saw and no one knew about.
Well, and you look at like the routes that he does run, that he's used on regularly, that he is targeted by Stafford. It's not deep down the field shots. It's kind of like little slants, in breaking, out breaking slants. And that's all I've ever seen, really. And we saw it some early, I think in that 2021 season when Stafford still was his gunslinging younger self, before he got hit mercilessly through 2021, 23 and last year. I think, I don't. It's all just very confusing to me. I was so shocked that they re-signed him.
Yeah, because it's like either use him like Deshaun Jackson in his heyday and make him just that you have like 10 plays, certain packages that you use a few times a game. Jackson obviously in his prime was much more using that, but like that's what you use him for. Like he's that deep field stretcher, and that's what it is. Or make him like Julian Edelman, and he can just be a slot out route machine and use his speed to just get you 5 to 10 yards every single play. But it's like they're in between, like knowing what they want to do. And I don't know if they actually are, but just from the outside looking of his usage, that's what it feels like. It's like, well, we want his deep ball ability, but we're going to use him as an out route guy. I don't know.
Well, and to drive the point home even more on your point is one of the things that McVay doesn't really like to do is sub packages on offense. He wants to use that illusion of complexity, and move fast and keep the same guys on the field as much as possible without giving the defense a break. And that works against Tutu, because if he is just being used as kind of in a gadgety kind of a way, that doesn't jive with the rest of the offense, which is why it's even more confounding. And I'm going to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
And
rooting for him.
Yeah, always root for any guy in the NFL that is as old as me or as tall as me. I'm rooting for.
Yeah. We've been rooting for him now going into year 5. Let's see it happen.
I've taken the banner down though. I'm not flying the flag anymore. Now I'm just like, I'm sitting back. I'll be a Tutu fan. How many Tutu Atwell jerseys do you think have been sold over the last 4 years? I think I've seen a few.
Maybe more than as many catches as he has.
Speaking of jerseys, Britton Covey taking on the hallowed number 10 number.
Yeah. Yeah. didn't love that. Did you see also for the Chargers, undrafted free agent quarterback DJ Uyunglele took on Keenan Allen's 13. That was almost even worse.
That's rough. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Britton Covey, the hallowed 10. I wouldn't want that. I'm staying away from that. First year he's gone. At least give
If
it a few
I'm,
years.
yeah, exactly. I don't want to be compared.
Yeah.
I don't want the ire from fans.
Yeah, give it a few years. All right. Well, let's I probably got two more positions we can talk about really camp battles. I think tight end. I don't know if you agree, Skinny, but I know Tyler Higbee is obviously the incumbent and the starter, and we know when healthy what he can do. We've talked ad nauseum. We don't need to talk too much more. I think Higbee when healthy is a good big part of this offense. You and I both agreed at the pick of Terrence Ferguson that didn't hate the pick. We liked a few of the other guys on the board still available, but I think he'll fit nicely and do good things. The reason why I think it really is a camp battle is, and again, we just got done talking about what McVay says versus what he does when it comes to Tutu Atwell. So we'll see if this is the same case. But like the reviews and the excitement that both McVay and Les Snead showed about getting Terrence Ferguson leads me to believe that they really think they want him involved now, like involved in the offense, pushing Tyler Higbee, potentially overtaking Tyler Higbee. So typically a second round tight end, I wouldn't say is a big camp battle for your incumbent starting tight end. Injury obviously would be different, but all things being even, being healthy, but just the way that they've talked about him, there was even that one report that they would have taken him potentially in the first round. Like that tells me that they see him as a viable starting tight end. And as you said, there's going to be a lot more 12 personnel where both can be out there. But I think it's a true battle that he could be tight end one when the season starts. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it kind of leans one extreme or the other. So as we've talked about a lot on the show, tight end's a very hard job to do. Transitioning from the NFL or from college to the NFL. Tons of examples of first round guys that just can't pick it up very quickly. Some takes the whole rookie contract. So this is actually in that vein, it's actually a really smart bet. But I think in terms of the extremes, he's either going to be a starter on the field a ton, or he's going to be in a doghouse pretty quickly if he's not able to pick stuff up really quickly. So if they are running 12 personnel, I think, Tyler Higbee's probably going to be more your inline guy. Colby Parkinson also in that role. And then I think Terrence Ferguson is probably going to be kind of in a big slot role, split out a bit more. But you got to know this offense really, really well. And there's a lot of similarities between the offense he was in Oregon and what McVay likes to run. As far as we know anyway. I think there's going to be so many wrinkles and changes in this offense just based on all this evidence that we've gotten from free agency and the draft. So, I think the camp battle is going to be between Terrence Ferguson and Terrence Ferguson.
Nice.
Can he, learn that quickly, get up to speed and into playing form? Because as we know, McVay is not afraid to drop a second rounder into the doghouse.
Yeah, for sure. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And kind of going back into that wide receiver 3 talk, like, if they love him enough and if he does well, like there's going to be packages potentially where he's that wide receiver 3, as you mentioned, kind of split out wide. Yeah, he's the tight end, but maybe people may call it 12 personnel if two tight ends are out there, but maybe he'll be actually deemed as like the third wide receiver in 11 personnel, with Tyler Higbee being the one inline tight end. Because he has that big body that played a lot in the slot for Oregon. So doing stuff. And the Rams have tried to kind of find a tight end that can do those things over the years and tried converting guys and never worked out. So maybe this is the guy. Maybe that's even the other camp battle. It's not Ferguson versus Ferguson or Ferguson versus Higbee. It's Ferguson versus Tutu Atwell or Jordan Whittington, like in terms of getting on the field in that role.
Yeah, well, and you think about all of the work that Cooper Kupp did, as that big slot. Obviously he's not as big as Terrence Ferguson, but moving on from Kupp changes the offense. I mean, in and of itself, it's got to evolve because of the special things that Cooper Kupp did bring. So, I see Ferguson kind of moving into doing some of those things that Cooper Kupp did. So I think it's absolutely right. You think about Devontae and you think about Puka. They're able to play in the slot, but they're more. I mean, Puka's been on the outside more, just because maybe because of Kupp, but primarily those two guys have been outside receivers. So, I mean, I think he's in that. I think he's in that wide receiver 3 kind of conversation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, last battle. Unless you have another one at the end of this, Skinny, we can do it. But I think center is a real battle. I know they just signed Coleman Shelton back from Chicago, and I think in an interview somewhere, like they basically said they signed him to be their starter. But Bo Limmer started a lot of the year. I know there was some shortfallings there, but late round pick. We'll see how his development comes along this offseason and his ability to push. I know it's a long shot because he's a UDFA, but obviously a lot of love for Willie Lampkin and a lot of people saying he'll make the roster as a backup. But Bo Limmer made the roster as a backup and then became the starter. So, you never really know what kind of can transpire. But I don't think it's like Coleman Shelton is a lock. I don't think he's like, he's not an all-pro center. He's not a Pro Bowl center. So I think when you have kind of that talent pool at the position, it's pretty wide open for guys to push each other. So at the end of the day, I think probably Shelton will win that job. But I think when you look at the offensive line, it's kind of locked across the board, in my opinion. You just re-signed Alaric Jackson. Again, all things being healthy. Just re-signed Alaric Jackson, so he'll be your left tackle. Steve Avila, will be, your left guard. Kevin Dotson going to be your right guard, and Rob Havenstein, the stalwart's going to be your left or your right tackle. So center is really the only one that's like not, I think, locked, even though it may sway heavily towards Shelton, but I think there's still a battle to be had. Do you think it's a lock, or do you think there's a chance we see someone uproot the new 2-year Ram?
I think that there should be a good consideration for other guys. I threw it around in my head just for like a second today. What if Steve Avila, what if they try him at center again? Will they do that? Will they try that out? I mean, they did it. They put him at center for all of training camp, all the way through July and August.
Yep.
And then at the last minute, they switched. And the reason I bring that up is because while Coleman Shelton played better than Bo Limmer did when he was with the team in 2023, he just still didn't play great. He allowed 36 pressures as a center, which is in both this year and 2023. He's been in the top 10 of centers allowing pressure. And that's not great. You don't want that. So it's, this is we got to find the best answer, not the perfect answer. Like how many teams have won the Super Bowl because they have the best center in football? Not very many, maybe never. But they got to find a better answer than Bo Limmer offered last year. And I think, from a communication standpoint, Coleman Shelton's the front runner, got a lot more experience at the position. But the reason I want there to be a battle is they just need a better answer. And, last time we saw Coleman Shelton, in position, the running game was a lot better. So I think at the very least it should improve, that. So
yeah, for sure. I know it's painful for Rams fans, but I still stay up at night wondering what would be if the Rams took Creed Humphrey instead of Tutu Atwell. Because I think Creed Humphrey might have a bone to pick with that statement, Skinny. I mean, he's arguably the best center, and the Chiefs have won quite a few Super Bowls with. They also have the best quarterback in football, so it's a little different.
Yeah. I think, is it because they have Creed Humphrey that they've won that, or they drop, Coleman Shelton in there and they would be just fine. I mean, but yeah. I do think Creed Humphrey would be better than Tutu Atwell playing center.
Yeah, for sure at playing center if they would both play in the same position. Yeah, it'll be. I think that'll be hopefully, if anything, it's just a battle that pushes the other one to grow. Iron, the old adage, iron sharpens iron. So we shall see. But anything left to add?
I'm curious about punt returner, kick returner, return specialist, just because it's been a need for such a long time. And I'm looking at Jarquez Hunter, I'm looking at Britton Covey. Can Tottenham Mumfield play in that area? They dropped Jordan Whittington into that role to not much fanfare or success last year. So underrated. But this, football at its core is a battle of field position.
Yep.
And if you can pick up an extra 5 yards on the punt return, it makes a big difference, and it gets overlooked all the time. And forever, we've pounded the table about getting a consistent kicker, and let's go back to those episodes about talking about kickers, because that was rough. That was fans, go back and think about those missed kicks that cost games.
Yeah.
And anyway, but flies under the radar, but it's always something I'm paying attention to at camp is, who's back there taking those kick returns.
It's a great point. And it's still crazy to me that for how smart, and this not even to do with smart, but just for how much of an edge a coach like Sean McVay looks at every facet of the game in order to get an edge. Like, what can we use in this down and distance? What can we use to our advantage? And yet for almost an entire year, he trotted out Cooper Kupp to just fair catch punts. And maybe that wasn't even necessarily McVay's fault. It was just the roster construction, not having a viable return option. But the fact that you're too afraid to get anyone else back there for fear of fumbling, that you just say, Kupp, go fair catch it. We don't want you to get hurt. So we don't want you to return these. But yeah, I mean, there's such an advantage to be able to gain that extra yardage in that return game and flip the field. And yeah, you just accepted, we're just going to either fair catch it or let it go over your head, and wherever it ends up, and we'll just have to make it up on offense. It's starting off as such a disadvantage for a coach that is all about advantages and football smarts and IQ. That was just fascinating to me that's what they resorted to for almost an entire year.
Yeah. And special teams is a little bit dangerous, and to throw Cooper Kupp and his brittled knees out there, I was always like, don't do it. Please don't do it. Because the guy gets pushed, hits into the side of the knee, he's out, the rest of the year.
Yeah. So, well, hopefully one of these guys will step up.
Take the good with the bad, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB Network. If you have not already, please hit that like and subscribe button on the Rams LAFB YouTube channel. You can find us on socials at LAFB Network. He is at RL Anderson LAFB. I am at Ryan Dyrud LAFB. If you prefer audio, Apple, Spotify, just search the Rams Skinny and you can find us there, or all of our Rams content plus Los Angeles sports content is LAFBnetwork.com. Appreciate you always, Ramley. Big thanks to Skinny T, and we'll be back in just a couple days with more Rams talk.